Hello, and welcome back to Morganza, the epic podcast about life, music, and I don't know, cosmic balance or something like that. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we're in for a real treat today because joining us is author, musician, podcaster, filmmaker, and Beatles historian, all the way from Liverpool, England, Mr. David Bedford.
Whoa, what an intro that was.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah, probably. Not enough hours in the day.
David, how are things in Liverpool these days?
Oh, they're great. Thank you very much. Yeah, really good over here. It's actually not had any rain for about 3 days.
That's not. I checked your weather today, and it looked like you're about the same as us here in Atlanta. So
yeah, make the most of it. We don't get a lot of it.
I know. I know.
Yellowy thing in the sky, whatever they call it.
Yeah. So I was in Liverpool a few years ago, and we took the Magical Mystery Tour bus, and we took the Mersey River excursion, and we visited Penny Lane and Strawberry Field and the Cavern, and we just generally had a great time. I thought everybody was very friendly and accommodating, so we really loved it.
I mean, that's one of those great things we always get in Liverpool is that was such a friendly city. People love coming here, particularly if they've been to London first. Then they come to Liverpool and they go, you try and speak to somebody you don't know in London and they think you're going to get mugged or something. Very different here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. You were born and raised in Liverpool, right? And if I'm not mistaken, not far from Ringo's old neighborhood.
Yeah, so I lived in the Dingle, which is where Ringo's from. Literally, you go down the bottom Madryn Street where Ringo was born. It's South Street. My back gate came out at the bottom of Madryn Street. So I literally was within throwing distance. And the primary school I went to is the primary school that Ringo had gone to. Right. Though I would point out 25 years before me, I was not at school with Ringo. I have been asked that. And I'm not quite sure who's been complimented and who's been insulted. I was not there at the same time as him at all.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So I lived around there till I was 24.
Right.
And then my wife and I, we moved out into the suburbs. And not by design, but just where we found the right house was just off Penny Lane, which you already mentioned. And up until 3 weeks ago, that's where we lived. So we lived around there for nearly 37 years. And we just moved house 3 weeks ago today. And we're just on the edge of Liverpool, on the edge of an area called Highton, which most people won't have heard of. But 5 minutes from my house now is where Stuart Sutcliffe, the first Beatles bass player, grew up. So this was his neck of the woods. So wherever I've gone in Liverpool, the Beatles are surrounded. Yeah, there's a link somewhere.
Right. So what was it like growing up there at the time of the Beatles? So you were born kind of in the middle of Beatlemania, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I missed everything.
You what?
I missed everything because,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, so I turned 5 in June 70 and they'd already split up.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. So what, do you have an earliest Beatles-related memory?
Probably the earliest memory for me was starting to learn guitar.
Yeah.
So that would have been late 70s, 78, 79, something like that. And my friend Gary, who taught me to play guitar, he was 3 or 4 years older than me. So he was already into the Beatles. So some of those first songs that I got to learn were Beatles songs. And the first music book I bought was The Beatles Complete for guitar. Right. Which if anybody's got, and I still have my original copy, if you've got it, loads of the chords are wrong, loads of the lyrics are wrong. And so I've had to write over the top, no, it's this.
Well, because they used to have those music books were made by like jazz musicians, right? I mean, the Beatles didn't write their own music.
So there was somebody,
right.
So I don't know who wrote them, but yeah, loads of it was wrong. But at least I had my first songbook, which I say I still have all those years later now.
Right.
So that's my first engagement really was with the music. And then as I was getting into that, suddenly it's December 1980. I'm 15 years old, heading off to school, and the news comes on and says John Lennon's been murdered.
Yeah.
And that's when it really hit me because it was in Liverpool. The whole city was affected.
Yeah.
And then that's when I wanted to know more and delve more into it. And suddenly it just became the thing that was always there with me. So the music, then there was John's death, then there's the tribute concerts. And, everybody thinks of the concert for George at the Albert Hall, which is fantastic, one of my favourite concerts. But we had one in Liverpool. And we had some artists like Joe Brown, Steve Hackett. But then there was, surprise, Paul McCartney came on. And Paul came on, did a lovely little tribute to George. And then he sang Yesterday, a cappella. Wow. And instead of why she had to go, it's why he had to go. And it was magnificent. So by then, I was completely gripped then after George had died. So you had the two of them. And the connection being, because we've got three daughters, they went to the same school that John and George had gone to.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, all three daughters were born in the same hospital as John. But they went to the same school as John and George. Mm-hmm. And so I was still there in Beatles history and getting reconnected again then because of the kids. And then it was back in the year 2000 and we were trying to raise money for the school. And we put out the appeal and the person who responded to the appeal was Yoko Ono. And she said, how much money do you need? And I
remember that.
Yeah, well, we sent a budget. It was about £26,000, something like that. She said, well, John loved his time at Dovedale. Yeah. I'll give you £30,000, do all the work you need to do, put some extra money in the pot for you. And then has made several visits to the school, met the children, met the teachers. Then I got to meet her in Mendips, the house that John grew up in.
Right.
As well. So that then reconnected. So the first thing I ever wrote about the Beatles was about Yoko giving the money to Dovedale. And I thought, this isn't the Yoko I've been told about. And I thought, hang on, there's something wrong here. Isn't she the horrible woman who broke up the Beatles and all that stuff? And I thought, no, she was very, very generous and very kind and lovely with the children. Thought, okay. And that was me. I was hooked.
Wow. Interesting. That's quite a story.
So it got me started writing.
Good. And now, what you're focused on, so, your first couple of books. So I'm looking at Liddypool, Birthplace of the Beatles. Focuses on Liverpool itself, as well as the Beatles, kind of becoming musicians in Liverpool. And the same with your second book, the Fab 104.
Yeah.
And this one especially, it goes up to the recording contract.
Yes, at the end of 62.
This is very, very focused on the early years, which is something I've never seen before. I've never seen a book that just focused on those particular years.
Well, that has always been was my passion. Firstly, because I thought, well, I'm starting to write about the Beatles, and so part of my story is at the same time that Yoko was giving us the money, I got signed off work through illness, which was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and was told I could not go back to work again. So there was at 35 with a wife, 3 young kids and a mortgage. And I was told I wasn't going back to work and I had to find something to do. And what I found to do was researching and writing about the Beatles. And it just became a therapy. It just became a hobby. And I thought, well, because I've had the Beatles around me all my life, I'll go and read a book about the Beatles in Liverpool and find out more and go and take photographs and just log it somehow. Nobody had written a book just about the Beatles in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Why? I mean,
I don't know.
We're talking in the early 2000s.
I know.
Nobody had done a book just about the Beatles in Liverpool. And
I thought this. I felt the same way. I thought maybe I just missed it, but I've never seen anything like what you put together.
Yeah, there was nothing there, and that's why the phrase on the front of the book: to understand the Beatles, you've got to understand Liverpool. And the problem was most of the well-known authors were not from Liverpool, so they couldn't really tell the story of Liverpool and how Liverpool shaped the Beatles. So that's what Liddypool became, and it was just mean, it took me 9 years to do, and for those first 7 years of interviewing people, researching, reading loads and loads of books, doing all that, I didn't have a publishing contract. It was just, well, I'll publish it next year. And it was almost like a family joke.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of some of my projects are like.
Yeah. We all have projects like that.
This podcast.
Yeah. We'll get round to it.
Yeah.
But then this lovely guy, Marshall Terrell, who's a great author, came over to Liverpool, and one of the other things that I've developed is being a tour guide as well. So I do quite a lot of that now.
Wow.
And I just took him around Liverpool, and by the end of the day, he said, I've been researching and writing about the Beatles for years and years. I don't know half of what you've just told me.
Right.
Where did you get it from? I said, well, I'm sort of putting it together like into a little book sort of thing, the family joke. And he said, send me something. So I sent it to him. He got in touch with his publisher, who rang me and offered me the deal. So that's how Liddypool happened.
Wow.
And 2 years later, it was published. And for me, just having a book on the bookshelf in a proper bookstore, I was happy.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
I hear you.
It took on a life of its own then. And in 18 months, it had sold out, the first run. And I was getting invited to do talks. I must have done at least 15 trips to America in that time, going to Beatles conventions and things that had gone around Europe, around the UK. And it just then became mad. And then the second book, which you mentioned just then, was because my passion's always been the early years. I was like, okay, well, we know John, Paul, George and Ringo, and we know what they became. And I get asked the question all the time, how do they become John, Paul, George and Ringo? I thought, well, that was easy. But it wasn't. So one of those chapters in Liddypool is the story of the Fab 27 and the 27 musicians that got there. And I thought, okay, people keep asking me about this. Who are these people? So I thought, I'll expand that. And I'll write about the Fab 27. And as I do when I go down a rabbit hole, the 27 didn't stay 27. And so we got to 36 and 43 and 52. And eventually it got to 104 people. And that wasn't intentional. That was just the coincidence. When I added them up, I thought, hang on, we've got a Fab 4, but we've got a Fab 104. And all these people had to have played a part in them becoming the Beatles.
Right. Whether it was teaching them guitar or, booking them or
playing in the group with them.
Playing in the group with them. Even the number of people in and out of the Quarrymen was substantial.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these musicians that came and go. And I thought that was a fascinating story for me. So probably of all the books I've written, that is my favorite. The others, and I've done 9 books now. Each one's slightly different. But yeah, the Fab 104 is one I go back to all the time and thought, wow.
Well, your other hobby is photography, right?
Well, that's what Liddypool was going to be, just a book of photos.
Your books are full of pictures. Like every place you talk about, there's a picture of it. Every person you talk to, there's a person where there's a picture where they live. It's just amazing. It just makes it very, very real.
Well, that's how it was just going to be, a book of photos, because I thought that's all it was.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it started out. It was a hobby for me to do. Try and find these locations, go around and take photos. I thought, I might get 100 pictures of stuff. I think it was about 800 photos in Liddypool.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, just venues alone, just in and around Liverpool, between the Quarrymen and the Beatles, they played, I think it's about 110 different venues.
Okay.
So then you got the homes, you got the schools, and then all these places add up, all with links to the Beatles themselves. So it started as a little project, as something to do, and well, once I get started on something, that's the problem. I keep going until somebody says stop.
Well, you see my CD collection back here.
That's the same thing.
I can relate to
that. Yeah. So you're in like the 4th edition of Liddypool. By the way, the title. Where's that?
Liddypool.
That was the thing, because everybody asked me the same thing. Why Liddypool?
Well, I know, but I just want you to explain it.
I love it. I saw what you did there. Very good. I like that. Well, it's because when I was doing the research, and I'd talked quite a bit to Bill Harry, who started the Mersey Beat paper.
Right.
And Bill's done a number of books on the Beatles, and he's really one of those who got me started because of the research he'd done for his various books. And he was a great mentor and everything. And of course, in one of the first editions of Mersey Beat, which came out in July '61, John Lennon, being Bill's friend from art college, just started contributing little articles, and one was about being out and about in Liverpool. And as we know anything about John, he loved playing with words.
Mm-hmm.
So he changed Liverpool into Liddypool, and then he took locations around the city and changed them into his own language. And I thought, well, this is great. If I'm doing a book about the Beatles Liverpool and John's got a name for it, Liddypool, well, I'm going to use that. And that's why it became Liddypool, Birthplace of the Beatles.
So Ed, you're like in the 4th edition of this book. So what's going on? Are you adding to it, or what's?
Yeah, I've been adding some bits to it. Yeah. So the first one came out in 2009. That was the limited edition hardback. So that's sold out in 18 months.
Hardcover.
Yeah. And that was big as well. It was a huge book.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was huge.
I'll have to look for a secondhand version.
The price of them is unbelievable. I can't believe it. The people charging that for my book. I remember one guy was a local radio presenter, and he interviewed me. Real nice guy, Billy Butler. He's in the book, and he said, "I've seen a coffee table book before, but actually put 4 legs on it. That could be a coffee table."
It's a big one, huh?
It was big. So the second edition was softback. That came out in 2011. That then sold out. So then went to a third print run, and I added in, there was a lot of interest in sort of into Chester and North Wales. So it's within driving distance of Liverpool. So I just added some, and then just updated that and some of the early things with more locations I'd found and little tweaks as I went along as well.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I wish I'd had your walking tours, which are part of the Liddypool, when I went, because we would have seen a lot more stuff.
Yeah,
we would have been there a lot longer.
Yeah, there's so much to see. That's the whole thing. People think, oh well, there's the Cavern and Penny Lane and Strawberry Field and some houses. No, I've got hundreds of locations.
Yeah. So you talked to like dozens of people, right?
I worked it out the other day. I went through for all the people I've interviewed, and I'm just coming up for 120. 120 people.
And was it hard to track them down, or are they still in the area? Or
I mean, a lot have passed on now. But there are still a number around, and that was the great thing of being in Liverpool, because there are so many events and people get invited to events. You just bump into the same people, and eventually, once you get some credibility of, anybody I interviewed said, right, I'll write this up. I will send this to you.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got anything wrong or you want to change anything, let me know. I'll correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps. So then when I want to speak to somebody else, they say, oh, yeah, such and such. And you get the referral on. And being from Liverpool, there are people who've spoken to me who won't speak to any other Beatles historian or author. So you get the reputation and, being honest. And that's what they like, which is great.
Yeah.
So tell us about the history of Liverpool. So it's gone through good times, bad times. You're kind of back in the good time era at this point, right? Things are kind of booming.
Oh yeah, it's great at the moment. It's a nice resurgence.
Yeah.
Because the history goes back officially over 800 years. So we were granted a charter by King John, he of Robin Hood fame, back in 1207. And we were just a small village, really. Nothing really changes for a few hundred years. And then with the growth in shipping, ships getting bigger, and then the growth of the slave trade, Liverpool, Bristol, London were the three main ports involved in the slave trade. So we had the goods being shipped out of Liverpool, taken down to the west coast of Africa. They were then exchanged for the slaves. Slaves were then sailed over to the Caribbean, southern states, sold there, and then the ships were then loaded up with sugar, tobacco, and particularly cotton, brought back to Liverpool and sold there. So Liverpool became the centre of the world trading cotton back in the 19th century and going into the 20th century. So much so that we got involved in the American Civil War, which not many people know about.
Let me think about that. And how so?
Because of the trade in cotton.
Okay.
Yeah. And all that was coming from the southern states coming into Liverpool and then being sold through here. The Confederates thought that if we stop selling the cotton, then Britain has got to recognise the Confederates as a separate country. Now, of course, that didn't happen. But what happened was, with the stopping selling the cotton, all the cotton brokers, and there were 300 of them just in Liverpool, they needed the cotton. So the Confederates sent over a guy called James W. Bullock, and it was his job to work with the Liverpool cotton broker. They financed the building of the Confederate Navy here in Liverpool. And the most successful ships in the Civil War, were particularly the Alabama, was the most destructive. It sank more ships than any other. That was built on the River Mersey here.
Wow.
And so cotton became really part of that. And by the end of the war, I think we had even more cotton brokers here. It's just a huge thing. And in fact, what most people also don't realize is the very final act of the American Civil War took place in Liverpool.
The final act?
The very final act of the American Civil War took place in Liverpool, because the captain of the Shenandoah was off the west coast of America sinking Union ships, not realizing the war was over.
Yeah.
When eventually he's told by a British ship that he comes into contact with, he thinks, oh, I can't now sail into an American port because I'll be done for piracy. Where's the only place on the planet where it would be safe? Liverpool. So he sails from the west coast of the States down under South America, up and across the Atlantic, into the River Mersey, and in November 1865, he surrenders. And that is the very final act of the American Civil War.
Oh, wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah. So Liverpool's been involved. We were, once slavery was abolished, we were one of the most important commercial ports in the world by that point. Sometimes you were outstripping London, even that, which is much, much bigger than Liverpool. But because of our importance on the west coast of Britain, we were the major port, most advanced shipbuilding. We got 7 miles of docks just on the Liverpool side of the River Mersey. So we were just a booming city. That then we get to the Second World War, which of course is when the Beatles are born.
Yeah.
And we're the second most bombed city in Britain because the importance of the docks.
I didn't really realize, in the post-war era in the U.S. was boom time.
Yep.
Things were going like gangbusters. But you had a lot of rebuilding to do, and you had rations. I mean, you had all kinds of austerity going on.
Yeah, because rationing didn't finish till 1954.
Yeah.
We didn't finish paying back our loans to the US government until about 10 or 15 years ago, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
That's why it was boomtown over there, because we all borrowed money to finance the war. So we were paying you back.
Gotcha.
But we got absolutely flattened in 1940 and 41 by the Luftwaffe. And the last bombs were dropped early 1942, just before Paul was born. But the large areas of Liverpool city centre were just completely obliterated. Little towns like Bootle, just on the edge of Liverpool, 90% of the houses were destroyed because they were right next to the docks.
Yeah.
Because all the supplies that were coming in to keep Britain going, which were particularly coming from the US, were all coming into Liverpool.
Mhm.
And then when America joins the war, all the troops and the planes and the tanks getting shipped over all came in through Liverpool. So they reckon about 1.5 million troops came through here. All the planes, the fighter planes, was sailed over, brought into Liverpool, assembled in Liverpool, and then flown down to the southeast of the country and off to fight the war. The tanks were brought in, assembled, and all transported down there as well. So we became a hub in the Second World War as well. And that's the city that the lads were born into. And even when I'm grown up, I can still remember in the 70s, in parts of Liverpool, in the Dingle where I was, we used to play in what we called the Bommy, which was the bomb site. It hadn't been built on again. There were just gaps. There were just gaps everywhere where houses had been and been flattened. And that's just where you played. You don't think I'm going to play on a bomb site. It was the Bommy. That's where you went.
The Bommy. That's where you played.
Yeah, but there was just large bits of land where all the houses had to be cleared.
Yeah.
And hadn't been built on again.
Yeah.
So that's getting the context of Liverpool from a great international commercial port, flattened in the war, and never really recovered from that. And one of the great ironies is, as the Beatles are putting Liverpool on the map in the 60s and conquering the world, Liverpool economically was declining.
Yeah.
So when I'm growing up in the 70s, all they tell me at school is pass your exams, try and get to university to get out of Liverpool because there's no jobs.
Yeah.
We lost about 250, 300,000 people from like 800 and something thousand population had to leave to go and find work. Shipbuilding had gone. The docks went to containers. The cruise lines stopped coming from here. A lot of manufacturing closed down. So actually, the 1970s, growing up here, nobody cared less about the Beatles who broke up in 1970. They were not important. They physically had left Liverpool in 63, last played here at the end of 65, and broke up in 70. Apart from the hardcore fans, they just weren't important.
You weren't on the map.
Yeah. No.
You had other stuff to worry about.
Yeah, and unemployment was huge. Deprivation was huge. Economically, we were struggling so much. Of course, all that completely changes when John's killed. There was no Beatles tourism. There was nothing like that. And then suddenly, John's been killed. Thousands come to the vigils. And then fans then want to come to Liverpool and go and find, hang on, where did John live? Where's the Cavern? And the Cavern had been knocked down in 1973. So it wasn't there. There was no tourism. There was nothing for people to see. And Beatles tourism sort of grew on the back of John's sad death.
Interesting.
So what was the cavern that I visited?
As a very good recreation on the original site. And
site.
Yeah, and it is made of, I think they managed to save about 15,000 of the original bricks.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it's still got original bricks. Same idea of the three arches. So you got the wide bit down the middle and the stage at the end, then the narrower arches at the side where everybody danced. The only things on the current one goes down a bit deeper than the original, and it's at 90 degrees from where the original one was. So you used to go down the steps, and then your stage was in front of you. Now you go down the steps and turn left. But at least it's on the original site. That's
good. So speaking of the clubs, the Beatles played at the Cavern. Brian Epstein saw them there for the first time, right?
Yeah, November 1961.
But there were also lots of clubs in Liverpool at the time. And there was the Jacaranda, right?
Very important.
And the Casbah.
Very, very important as well.
Very important.
Yeah.
So the Casbah was formed by Mona Best, right? So the way you describe it in your book, she one day decides, I'm going to put a coffee shop in the basement. And her family's like, no, you're not. Sure enough, the next day, they're moving everything out of the basement. There's a coffee shop going in.
Yeah, and it was a club. So it's a huge house. Huge house. She bet money on a horse. Ridiculous 33-1 odds. When bookmaking was illegal, so it was an illegal bet, and she got enough money to put the deposit down and to buy the house against her husband's wishes. By the way, but yeah, she was an impulsive woman, and she's watching the program, and I actually found which program it was, and it was a little 10-minute segment TV shows which were called Look at Life. And I found the episode, and it aired in July 1959. And she saw that, and it featured the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in London. And she looks at that, and it's this little place where it's just tea and coffee, Coca-Cola being served, lots of young people there, a little band on a small stage. And she thought, well, my two sons are running all over the house, bringing their friends home from school. Wouldn't it be good to give them somewhere to play, to take them, have it as their own little space? And she thought, we could do like that, a little coffee club. That'd be fun. but of course, then word gets out that there's going to be a private members club for kids where they can see live music and listen to records and dance. And the queue was huge when it opens, 29th of August, 1959. And it's right out in the suburbs. You know, it's not like it's in the main inner city or anything like that. They're out in the suburbs. But because there was nowhere like it, everybody got on the bikes, went on the buses, walked, whatever they had to do to get there. And Mona was a very, very brilliant businesswoman.
Yeah.
And she worked out, well, I'll sell membership, which was cheap. It wasn't a lot of money. And then you bought a ticket to go and see whichever group was playing. If you remember, you got a cheaper rate. So it made sense to take out a membership.
Right.
And there was just hundreds of kids turned up. And it was a safe environment. And you had live music. And the opening group who opened the Casbah were the Quarrymen. John, Paul, George, and Ken Brown. Most people don't know about Ken Brown, and I interviewed Ken.
Okay. What was Ken playing?
Guitar. So we had 4 guitars.
Yeah, 4 guitars. Did they have a drummer?
No, just 4 guitars.
So how did they do that? I don't even understand what a band that's all guitars would sound like.
Very guitar-y.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And I mean, John had an electric guitar, his first electric guitar he bought the day before it opened. The other 3 were on acoustics. And the area where they played in the Casbah, and it's still there, original, it's still there, you can see it. I can stand up and put my arms out to the side and I can touch both sides. Right? There's 4 of them, and there's a photo of them on the opening night. Only one could stand up at a time. The other 3 had to sit down.
This is the Casbah we're talking about?
This is the Casbah, yeah.
Wow.
So they open the club at the end of August 59. So this is before they're a rock and roll group. They don't become a rock and roll group until May 1960, which is where the Jacaranda comes in with Alan Williams and Lord Woodbine. So that's when they first become a rock and roll group.
That's all for this time. We'll continue our conversation with David Bedford in 2 more episodes coming soon. In the meantime, you can check out David's website, davidabedford.com, where you'll find out everything David's up to. And you can pick up his books there, or also at BeatlesBookstore.com, where you'll find all kinds of writings about the Beatles from over 20 different authors. And then last but not least, you can follow David on X at @LiddypoolDave. Be sure to leave us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and we'd love it if you'd care to take some time to leave us a comment to let us know what you think. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Marganza.